It's the Skol Report with your host, the commish, Ryan Swenson.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the new and improved Skol Report. Coming at you live in video now. You know, it's 2020 is the year of online video. So here I am, live and in person for you, because what you were missing from this league was seeing more of my face. I know. So here you go. My present to you, Scully's 2 Football League. Thanks to the band Not a Robot for their song Got It Good, which is the song of our intro, the new and improved intro to the Skol Report. You can find their music on Spotify or YouTube. I'm going to throw little graphics or something on the video somewhere here that show. But thanks to them. The video is pretty cool. It's fun putting together. Anyway, I'm just going to come at you guys probably once a week, once every 2 weeks.
Come at me, bro. Come on.
Might have guests on here and there. Some weeks will be bigger than others. I'm going to keep this one pretty quick and short, though. We're not going to really do a week one recap. Week one recap. But we are going to talk about week 2, and we'll probably touch on some week 1 stuff during that. And I'm just going to kind of dive right into it. Week 1 was awesome. If you were me, it was really, really great. I had one of the top point totals that I've ever had. But let's look ahead to week 2. First matchup I want to talk about is Al versus Stacy, the battle of the patriarch and the matriarch of the Scully's 2 Football League, the hosts of the draft. This is a great matchup every year. We're getting it over with early in the year this season, and they're both 0-1 going into it, so they both really need a win. Nobody likes to fall to 0-2 in fantasy football. You start to feel like you're reaching and you're like everything's falling apart. It isn't, by the way. If you go 0-2, it's not all falling apart, but it starts to feel that way. And these are 2 teams that are not wanting that to happen. I just want to take a really quick gander here. I'm going to throw up probably a graphic here too. I'm going to try to throw up graphics throughout this so that if you're watching this, it kind of feels a little more interactive than just staring at my face the whole time. So, you know, as I'm talking about something, you might see a graphic, or there might be a little short video clip that I insert about something. But this matchup here between Al and Stacy, it's leaning in Al's favor in the projections. I always like to talk about the projections because there's not really anything else that the platform gives us to go to or to go on going into the week. They really are pretty meaningless, but it's always fun to look at it because, you know, if somebody does go in like a big favorite, well, yeah, they've probably got a pretty stacked team. Al comes in a slight favorite, so this is pretty normal. But some intriguing things going on in this week 2 matchup. Mike Evans is going to play. He's going to, we assume, play well and put up a lot of numbers. But he just had the one little touchdown for 2 yards last week. So that could be really intriguing for Al's squad going into this one. I also see that he's chosen to start Jared Cook this week. You know, I'm recording this late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. So the lineups I'm seeing, I'm going to assume everybody is pretty much kind of set on their lineups. You know, there might be injury substitutions and stuff at the last minute tomorrow morning, but it's kind of cool if I do record here late Saturday night and get you guys, you know, able to listen Sunday morning. I should be able to, you know, kind of talk more specifically about the lineups, which is kind of neat. Jared Cook is in here over Austin Hooper, and Austin Hooper, I think, was in his lineup last week instead of Jared Cook. Jared Cook had a great game. So Jared Cook gets the insert, like, oh, I made the mistake in week 1. And yeah, Austin Hooper only had 2 points on Thursday night. So hasn't paid off yet because we got to wait for the game to play on Monday night. But I think that's a decision that's going to pay off big for Al. On the flip side, Stacy's got Rob Gronkowski in at tight end. George Kittle, unfortunately, that I think it's a knee sprain. He's going to be out at least this week, maybe a few weeks. So that's a big hit to her team. She took George Kittle pretty early, the second round. Yeah, her second round pick. So kind of a big blow. I thought that Stacy might be a player for Dallas Goedert in free agency this week. So I put in a big bid for Dallas Goedert because I love the idea of having him as a flex option. He's not going to be my starter because I have Mark Andrews, but I thought Stacy for sure was going to make a bid on Dallas Goedert with George Kittle's injury. And it looks like, no, she didn't even bother. She didn't put even a $0 bid in. She's good to go with Gronk. So we'll see what happens with that. So this tight end matchup is pretty intriguing to me this week. And let's see if Patrick Mahomes can have kind of a bounce back game. I mean, he was great in week 1, so it sounds weird to say bounce back, but he only had 21 points for Stacy in week 1. And that's not really Patrick Mahomes in fantasy. We're used to seeing Patrick Mahomes put up 30 plus points on a almost on a weekly basis. So we'll see if he can do that. Patrick Mahomes was her week 1 MVP, top scorer on her team in week 1, despite just having those 21 points. So if he can up that to 30 or so, this could be a big week for Stacy. That Brady to Gronk connection is going to be really intriguing. Al's top player last week was Jimmy G.
Garoppolo to throw. Mostert with an opening. Mostert's got great speed and nobody in front of him. Raheem Mostert is going to take it to the house, galloping in.
Surprisingly enough, he had 22 points, and that was his top score, and he's in again this week. Al has chosen to keep Gardner Minshew on the bench despite his pretty good performance in week 1. He had 20.82 points in week 1, so just under Jimmy G. But going up against that Tennessee defense, Jimmy G going up against the Jets. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Al in this matchup, but I think this is going to be close. And I think that if Brady and Gronk can make a little bit of magic happen in week 2 here, Stacy could very easily take this one. It's going to be a fun one to watch for sure. Next matchup is Baker versus Jason. Both these guys lost in week 1 as well. So this is another, 0-1 versus 0-1 matchup. Nobody wants to fall to 0-2 kind of situation. And Baker's already had a couple of people go. And man, Baker Mayfield, he comes out in that first half and you're thinking, oh man, here comes a huge game from Mayfield. He's going to put up to 25, 30 plus points, and it slowed all down. The running backs had a ton of points, and Baker Mayfield only scored 17 points. Jarvis Landry had 4, of those receiving points. So just 21 points out of those two guys on Thursday night. That could come back to really hurt Baker. Because Jason's got Russell Wilson going on Sunday night, and if that could be a big outscore compared to that 17 points. We'll see. Russell Wilson was Jason's week 1 MVP. He had 33 points.
Wilson wants it all. Deep ball. Metcalf got it.
Almost 34 points. So, if he does that again, that's double what Baker's quarterback put up. Jason's receivers, Adam Thielen, Tyreek Hill. We'll see if Tyreek Hill can bounce back. A week 1 performance that wasn't what anybody, he had 10 points, but it was kind of like a crappy touchdown kind of saved it all. And he wasn't really showing up in a lot of situations like you assumed he would. So we'll see about week 2. I think Mahomes will probably, I'm sure they talked this week, and I'm sure it's like, oh yeah, we got to connect. We got to hook up. And then I see that Jason's got Cooper Kupp down there in his flex. Man, what a flex to have. He's got Adam Thielen, John Brown, Tyreek Hill, and Cooper Kupp. A pretty formidable wide receiver squad. I like what Jason's got. And then he's got Paris Campbell, MVS, and Deshaun Jackson on his bench. So, man, if you're looking for a receiver, maybe hit up Jason for a trade right now, because Jason's got, his RB2 right now is Ronald Jones, and his tight ends, Tyler Higbee and TJ Hawkinson. I'm sure he's probably happy with that, but maybe you could convince him into an upgrade at that position. He's got Kirk Cousins as his QB2, maybe, but he's pretty stacked at receiver. I like this a lot. Paris Campbell is a guy that's getting a lot of love for week 2 here, so it'll be interesting to see if Paris Campbell has a good game against Minnesota on Jason's bench. Does that become a situation where maybe even, I don't know if Jason really ever seeks out trades. I think Jason's kind of like a draft, and then I kind of fill guys as I need when they get injured and stuff. I don't think that Jason, I don't even know if Jason's ever made a trade. I'd have to look back. Jason, if you're listening to this, let me know. Have you ever made a trade in our league? And if you did you approach, or did somebody approach you about it? Anyway, approach Jason for trades, because I think he's got some wide receivers maybe that somebody could use. Baker's got, Lev Bell was a top pick for Baker, 4th round, and already on the IR. That means this year IR is a lot different. It means that they're going to be gone for 3 games. So a lot of players this year are going to get put on IR that would normally just be dealing with a lingering injury. And for fantasy, it sucks to have your player go on IR, but I feel like it's almost better to have it happen that way, because if Lev Bell was just questionable right now, or doubtful even, then it would suck, because there would still be decisions that had to be made, kind of going right down to the wire. Then next week, he's still questionable, and it gets to game time and he doesn't play again. Well, right now we just know, all right, he's going to be out 3 weeks. This is an injury that kind of is a lingering thing. We'll see what happens after that. So it's probably better for the fantasy player in the long run, just to know that their player isn't going to get pushed back too early, or isn't just going to kind of screw their decision-making process by always being questionable every week. So Lev Bell's on his bench now, and that sucks, but he's still got Zeke as his big workhorse back, and James Conner, he's cleared. He's not on the injury report. So can he be trusted? James Conner's injury last week is kind of what did Baker in. John and Baker last week, that was pretty much the matchup of the week, because that came right down to the wire. If you were watching, Baker lost during the last game, during the second half of the last game of the week. It was a Melvin Gordon touchdown, I think, that really iced it for John. And James Conner got hurt early in that game, and it really screwed Baker. But he's going with him again here. And it's kind of because his options are pretty thin after that. He's got Tony Pollard, who is the handcuff to Zeke, which is great, but it's kind of hard to play Zeke and Pollard in the same game. And then he's got Tariq Cohen, who is an interesting play for sure, but if James Conner is healthy and he's the lead back, then that seems to be the smarter decision. So he's going with the smarter decision. We'll see if it works out. Hopefully Conner doesn't re-aggravate his injury. But this is going to be a really, really, really close battle, I think. I think that Baker underperforming on Thursday night, though, I think that's going to hurt him. I think Jason might get his first win of the season here. Baker, sorry, man, picking you to fall to 0-2. Next matchup is Kyle versus Corey. Kyle came out hot last week, defending his title, put up 130 plus points. I think he had 138 points last week. And Corey lost last week, coming in 0-1. Corey really needing that victory. But Kyle had Odell Beckham go on Thursday night. And despite Baker Mayfield only putting up 17 points, 14 receiving points went to Odell Beckham. So he had a big game.
Last against the rush last year. Allowed 155 to the Chargers. This one downfield. Beckham got him. Touchdown, Browns.
It was bounce back for sure. is he now a reliable starter week to week? I still don't know. It still makes me nervous. But I think in situations where they're playing against defenses that they can attack, he's going to have good games. But he's also going to get shut down sometimes, and Baker's going to struggle sometimes and not get him the ball in some games. But this is one where it happens. So it's going to suck to go against Kyle this year in games where Odell goes off. Because if you can get Kyle on a week where Odell has a bad game, then you might get Kyle on a week when he has a bad game. Last week, it didn't hurt him. So he's still got other big options at receiver anyway. DJ Moore, who didn't have a good game last week, and Darius Slayton, who blew up last week. He was popular pick for, a sophomore breakout. But there were a lot of people that were like, but it's the Giants offense. It's just too hard to pick somebody from the Giants offense to be a breakout star. And man, he looked good last year during his rookie year, and he looked really good last week during his first game of his sophomore year. So I love Darius Slayton. They're going up against the Bears this week. That's going to be tough. Sorry, I just got thrown off because I didn't see Derrick Henry in Kyle's starting running back spots, but it's because Derrick Henry is in his flex this week. Derrick Henry against Leonard Fournette in the flex for Corey right now. The projection is way outweighed, obviously, there for flex, but that could be interesting. If Fournette starts to get a little more time, he got 5 carries last week for 5 yards. So if he gets the ball a little bit more in week 2, that could be interesting, that Fournette versus Derrick Henry matchup there. The other running backs in this matchup are Raheem Mostert and Miles Sanders on Kyle's side, and Christian McCaffrey and Peyton Barber on Corey's side. So, wow, obviously you got to pick Mostert and Sanders probably, but just the heft of McCaffrey alone makes you want to pick that side. McCaffrey was Corey's MVP last week, 25 points, man. That's McCaffrey. Every week it's 20 to 25 points guaranteed, it feels like.
Then you have something special.
Nice play of this drive, and this is McCaffrey to the end zone for the touchdown.
Having that security is just so awesome. Kyle's got, Mostert and Sanders. Sanders has been dealing with an injury, so we'll see how everything goes in this matchup. This is a pretty fun matchup, but Cam Newton really was he was just wanted to double check. He was Kyle's MVP in week 1 down there in the super flex spot. Cam Newton versus Phillip Rivers. Everywhere I see across the board in this matchup, I really like the way it looks. The intrigue of Gesicki versus Hunter Henry at tight end. Kareem Hunt was on Kyle's bench on Thursday night, and I'm sure he was kicking himself for that. That could be something that we come back and talk about, because that could be a deciding factor at the end of this. But on the flip side, Corey's got Chris Godwin, who's already been announced as out on his bench, and that sucks, man. Losing a big piece, he's going to have Emmanuel Sanders going as his wide receiver 3 this week, and hopefully that can compare up. He had 7.5 points last week. You want a little bit more from wide receiver 3, but that's not bad. We'll see how this goes. I think I'm gonna, this is hard. I'm gonna lean Kyle's direction just slightly. I like Stafford and Newton at quarterback. I like the Rams defense going against Philly. Kyle beat me to the Rams defense this week on the waiver wire. I tried to pick them up. I bid $1 because I thought if anybody did try to pick them up, they would bid 0. And Kyle, I think, bid 2 or 4 or something stupid. So good play there. I'm going to pick Kyle. I think he's going to win by a decent margin, but not too much. Corey, I hope you don't fall to 0-2, man, but let's see. 4th matchup of the week. This is a fun one. This is Becca versus Samantha. Samantha, man, I loved how Kyle and Samantha both came out of the gates. They were both in the championship game last week. Samantha came up short. I know it was real bitter pill to swallow for Samantha to to go from that emotional roller coaster she went on last year, where her team started out so poor and it looked like she was going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and then suddenly it all turned uphill, and she started to win and win and win, and then she made the playoffs, and then she won in the playoffs and made it to the championship game, and it was like this Cinderella story. Samantha's team, it looked like it was on the brink of defeat, and then she came back, and then she lost in the championship because Kyle's team was just way too dominant last year. And it's good for me to see Samantha and Kyle both come out strong again this year. So it's like, that wasn't a fluke last year. I'm out to play. Samantha had a big win last week and looking all right this week too. Tyler Boyd was had to be an interesting flex play for her this week. Had some decisions to make in that spot. Went with Boyd. Looked like it might not pay off. And then he scores a touchdown in the fourth quarter of that game on Thursday. And it's like, oh yeah, Tyler Boyd, 13 points. So good decision for her in the flex. That put her above her Yahoo projections, her original projections, because Boyd was only projected to get 8 points. So, but on the flip side, man, Becca had a huge game from Nick Chubb. 26 points, double his projection. Only 4 points from the Cleveland Browns defense, but hey, when you get 26 points from one of your running backs, who cares how many points your defense gets? She's got 30 points already. It's 30-13, and Becca is a slight favorite right now in the Yahoo projection, and she's still got some big pieces to go this week. A popular pick in the fantasy industry this week for a big game this week is Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. She's got him going. Matt Ryan was her MVP last week. He had 31 points.
Here's a first down pass, deep for Julio Jones, and he's got it inside the 35-yard line.
People are projecting a big game for him in week 2. He's going. Jonnu Smith against Jacksonville. People are projecting him to have a big game this week. So she's got some players on her team that, they're good players, but they're specifically being projected in the industry to have good week 2s. So she's got a great team. Lamar Jackson and Aaron Rodgers are going to win her some games this week for sure. This might be one of them. Both of those quarterbacks going against defenses that they can beat. But I just like the overall depth of Becca's team this week. I really do believe in Hollywood Brown this week. And I think Kamara and Breeze are going to, I'm going to pick Becca this week in this matchup. But man, this could be a high scoring one for sure. Fifth matchup is John versus Jensen. Both guys 1-0 coming in here. They're 1-0, but they're ranked 5th and 6th, so which would mean that they didn't score a ton of points last week. Hoping to change that this week in week 2. But you know what? A win's a win, so who cares, right? But points do matter. Don't forget. Jensen's already had Joe Mixon go in this matchup, so only got 8.6 points from him. Talk about Joe Mixon really quick. 4 points in week 1 and 8.5 points in week 2. Not what you're hoping to get from a second round pick. Luckily, Jensen's first round pick, Dalvin Cook, was his top scorer last week, 20 points. But surprisingly enough, his actual top scorer was on his bench last week, Malcolm Brown.
Brown again into the end zone.
Scored 23 points last week as the Los Angeles Rams running back. And he remains on the bench this week in week 2. So Malcolm Brown, top scorer for this team last week, still on the bench, not being given the opportunity to see what he could do. And that's because he's got Dalvin Cook and David Johnson and Joe Mixon, great running backs. If Malcolm Brown has another big week here in week 2, we might see one of those great running backs on the trade block possibly, or on Ryan's bench, just as a hopeful bounce back guy. If David Johnson has a really bad game in week 2, then that's Joe Mixon with 2 kind of poor games, and that's David Johnson with a bad game. That we could see Malcolm Brown come in for sure and be a starter in this lineup. But for now, his running backs look good. Dalvin Cook's going to have a good week, I think. And he's going up against another side of really good running backs on John's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Nobody knew what to think except for everybody who thought they knew exactly what to think. And it turns out those people were right. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the real deal. He scored a ton of points last week. I think he was he wasn't John's MVP, but he did score 20.8 points. He was really close. I think Teddy Bridgewater was his top scorer, scoring just a few points more. But man, 20 points from your rookie running back in week 1, who you drafted in the first round pick, number 1 overall, not number 1 overall, but your first pick overall. You love to see that breakout in week 1. You hope for even more in week 2. Melvin Gordon he's going to get a ton of work this week, you think, but it's work against the Pittsburgh defense. So Philip Lindsay is out, and Melvin Gordon looked okay last week, looked pretty good actually. So it's, you'd think there's a lot of work coming, but what quality work is that we'll see. That could really be the deciding factor. And then David Montgomery in the flex. Surprising to me that he had 13 carries last week. He was supposed to be, coming off a pretty nasty groin injury, and it turns out he was okay. So he's good to go in the flex this week. Going up against the Giants defense could be a really big play. So we've got, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Melvin Gordon, and David Montgomery on one side, and then Joe Mixon, Dalvin Cook, and David Johnson on the other. That's a really cool matchup. Lots of upside in the receivers in this matchup too, with Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf on John's side, and Robert Woods with his fresh new money on Jensen's side, and Robbie Anderson, who looked like he's what DJ Moore was supposed to be last week. So we'll see how this goes, man. Yahoo has this pretty even, man. Live projection right now is less than a point difference. I'm going to go with John in this one, just because I think we're going to see another big breakout game from Helaire, and I think that's going to be the difference maker. So let's move on to the last matchup of the week. The matchup of the week, might I say, between Rudy's boys, the undefeated Rudy's boys, and the number 1 team in the league, Soft Tissue Issue. Oh man, what a week 1 was, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you. I dropped my last 4 picks of the draft going into week 1. That's how much I loved the end of my draft. But I loved the top of my draft. And at the top of my draft, I would say the top 6, top 7 even, all were just phenomenal. Top 8 were great in week 1. It was awesome. My top 3 picks, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and Josh Allen, they were the real reason for that big week 1. And I think they're going to carry it here into week 2. Obviously, I'm going to be confident in my own team. But I've already been able to see Rudy's boys field AJ Green, and he only got 2.9 points in that game. You guys, what's going on with AJ Green? He got a ton of targets in that game, which is a good sign. It means that there's a trust between Burrow and Green. He wants to get him the ball, but he couldn't give him the ball. Burrow, it was an intriguing game for me. He looked awesome, but he made a lot of rookie mistakes, a lot of bad rookie throws, and that's going to happen. But I feel like the only thing anybody is talking about is how good he looked. He did have some rookie growing pains in that game for sure. Overthrew AJ Green a ton, but then also I didn't really see AJ Green getting a lot of separation. So there's debate, I think, to be had. Is AJ Green do the targets indicate that production is coming and he's going to have a great year? Or do those types of targets that we saw indicate a downward spiral coming? I don't know. I'm happy to see AJ Green on the field. I'm happy to see him get 13 targets. And it's not like he looked bad out there, but I just didn't really think he looked like AJ Green. Anyway, back to this matchup. Kyler Murray was Rudy's Week 1 MVP, and man, I don't want to go against Kyler Murray.
Far today for Murray, the Cardinals' leading rusher. He's going to try to run for some more here. Kyler Murray hops inside the 10. Murray turning on the speed, and Kyler Murray puts the Cardinals on top.
Luckily, it's the Washington Redskins defense, which looked lights out last week against Philadelphia. They had 8 sacks. So Kyler's not going to get sacked 8 times. He's too mobile, and for that, Carson, man, I thought he was mobile too, but Kyler's not going to get sacked 8 times. He's probably going to put up some good fantasy numbers this week, and hopefully it's not more than Josh Allen against Miami. This is interesting. 2, very mobile quarterbacks that we took high, and in Week 1 they paid off. Josh Allen wasn't my top scorer of the week. That was Devontae Adams, but Josh Allen was one of my top scorers of the week, and I picked him high because I think he's going to do that more often than not. So I hope that keeps happening. Daniel Jones versus Jared Goff down in the Superflex. Man, Daniel Jones definitely came out and kind of quieted a lot of haters last week. He had almost 20 points, almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looking to do that again this week, but going against the Bears. We'll see how that goes. I'm definitely picking myself in this matchup just because I'm really loving the way my team looks right now. I don't really see a weakness. The weakness could be James Robinson. I'm deciding to start James Robinson in my flex this week after his big, not big, Week 1 game.
To the field, a little pre-snap movement. Could be a free play for Jacksonville. Robinson breaking tackles, it seems like every time he's touched the football.
But, he was the only running back in Jacksonville that got carries in Week 1, and he got 16 of them. So that kind of says to me, like, all right, we're just going to go with this guy that we're hardly paying anything and see what happens this season. So I'm going to go with him in Week 2. They're going against Tennessee, which is that's scary, but I'm just going to see what happens. Roll the dice. And Rudy's throwing out Zach Moss. So I kind of feel like we're both doing the same thing in our flex here. Kind of rolling the dice with a rookie that, hasn't really proven himself yet. Zach Moss had 8 points last week. James Robinson had 9 points last week. But we're going to see what happens. So this matchup is going to be, I think it's probably going to be a nail biter. But yeah, I'm going to come out on top. So we're going to see wins this week, according to the commish from me, John. Who did I pick in the Becca versus Samantha one? Becca. I think I picked you. And Kyle. And Jason. And Al. You're going to be winners. Because I know all. Right? Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. I just kind of wanted to quickly talk about the Week 2 matchups. This will get elaborated on as the season goes, obviously. And I'll have guests on. That should be fun. You've all been on a Zoom call with me now, so you can all be guests on this show if you want. Talk about your team. Talk about your draft. Talk about what you look forward to for next year's draft, maybe. Yeah, this podcast will be fun. So thanks for tuning in. I am going to try to edit in some videos now, and I hope they all made it in there and that you saw them during this video. But if you didn't, then I'm sorry it didn't work, and I'll make the next one better. But if I did get them all in there, hope you enjoyed it. Anyway, that's the podcast. I'll see you guys next week. Good luck today, football day. Have a good week too. See you guys.